The galaxy was vast, filled with countless stars, planets, and civilizations. Among them, the Zorkon were feared above all. Towering over most species, their green-scaled bodies rippled with power, and their sharp claws and teeth could tear through steel. They called themselves the Alpha Race, claiming that might alone gave them the right to rule. Wherever they went, fear followed. For centuries, the Zorkon had conquered planet after planet. Entire civilizations vanished beneath their relentless campaigns. Alliances formed and fell, but none could resist the Alpha Empire. Even the bravest fleets hesitated before the might of the Zorkon, their ships dwarfed by the massive star cruisers of the conquerors. Then humans entered the scene. At first, the Zorkon barely noticed them. Humanity was young in space, just beginning to explore nearby star systems. Their ships were small, and their weapons primitive compared to the Zorkon war engines. Yet humans were curious, brave, and stubborn. When the Zorkon first glimpsed human colonies on a small blue planet at the edge of their mapped space, they dismissed it as insignificant. The humans did not attack. They only explored. But exploration alone was enough to draw the attention of the Zorkon. One day, without warning, the Alpha Fleet appeared. Massive black ships filled the sky above a human colony. They struck without mercy. Buildings crumbled under energy beams, and the air was thick with smoke. Panic spread as the Zorkon stormed the streets. The humans fought back, but their weapons barely scratched the Alpha invaders. Families huddled in bunkers while soldiers and pilots tried to protect what they could. In the end, thousands died before the Zorkon left, satisfied that humanity had learned its place. The galaxy expected this to be the end. Humanity was supposed to kneel as every other species had, but humans did not kneel. On Earth, the news of the massacre reached every corner of the planet. People watched the images of burning colonies and fallen settlers. Leaders, scientists, and soldiers met in emergency councils. They debated, planned, and argued, but one idea united them all. Humanity would never allow this to happen again. Science became their first weapon. Engineers worked day and night to create faster ships, stronger shields, and more precise weapons. Communication networks were strengthened, and humans began studying the tactics of the Zorkon, learning how the Alpha Empire fought and moved. It was not just about revenge, it was about survival. Humans understood something that the Zorkon never did. Strategy could overcome strength. Where the Alphas relied on sheer power, humans relied on cleverness, innovation, and teamwork. Across the galaxy, whispers began. Other species, once terrified of the Zorkon, noticed humans preparing. Some laughed. They are weak, small, and untested, they said. But a few quietly watching felt hope. Maybe the humans could survive where so many others had fallen. Meanwhile, the Zorkon Emperor, a massive and terrifying figure named Karak, sat on his throne and learned of the humans' survival efforts. He was amused at first, thinking it foolish that such a fragile species would resist. But amusement quickly turned to irritation. He sent spies and scouts to monitor human activity, and soon he saw progress. Ships were faster, shields were stronger, and humans were learning their battle tactics. Karak roared in frustration, shaking the walls of his palace. How can they grow so quickly? He demanded. They are weak. They are nothing. But even as he raged, he could not deny the truth. Humans were changing. They were learning, adapting, and preparing. The seeds of resistance were growing. On Earth, young pilots trained in simulation rooms, learning to navigate asteroid fields and evade enemy fire. Engineers tested new weapon prototypes that could bypass even the strongest shields. Scientists discovered new ways to manipulate energy and matter, turning small ships into powerful threats. And civilians, inspired by stories of courage, contributed in every way they could. By the end of the year, humanity had transformed. The small, overlooked species that the galaxy had ignored was no longer defenseless. They had united under a single purpose: to survive, to protect their home, and to show that even the weakest could stand against the strongest. And somewhere far away, in the heart of the Zorkon Empire, Karak began to realize that the humans were not just another species to conquer. They were a challenge unlike any he had faced before. A storm was coming, and the Alpha race might not survive it. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy waited in silence, unsure of what the future held. The humans were small, untested, and underestimated. But they had something the Alphas had never considered: courage, determination, and the unbreakable will to survive. The Alpha Empire had ruled for centuries. But for the first time, a new force was rising, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The humans were no longer the helpless species the Zorkon had once thought. On Earth, every city, laboratory, and spaceport was buzzing with activity. Scientists worked tirelessly on new energy weapons, engineers designed faster, stronger ships, and soldiers trained endlessly for a war they had not yet begun but knew was coming. The first strike was small but precise. A human destroyer named Horizon slipped silently through space near a Zorkon supply route. Its crew had studied the enemy for months, learning their patterns, weaknesses, and communication signals. Using this knowledge, they ambushed a lone Zorkon cruiser. Within minutes, the massive alien vessel was destroyed. News of the attack spread quickly. Across human colonies, celebrations erupted. Humans had struck first and won. The Alpha race, so confident in its power, had been shocked. For the first time, a human victory shattered the illusion that the Zorkon were invincible. The humans did not stop there. They realized that brute strength would not win the war. They needed strategy, precision, and cunning. Smaller strike teams targeted supply convoys, disabled communication relays, and hacked enemy systems. Human drones flew silently through Zorkon fleets, gathering information and sabotaging ships from the inside. Each success made the humans stronger, and each victory weakened the morale of the Alphas. Across the galaxy, oppressed species began to take notice. Many had suffered under the Zorkon's iron rule for centuries. Seeing humans fight back inspired hope. Some species reached out secretly, offering supplies, information, or even soldiers to join the humans' growing resistance. The Zorkon Emperor, Karok, watched the humans' actions from his throne. At first, he thought the attacks were minor annoyances. "They are children playing with fire," he said. But the more humans struck, the more Karok realized that these creatures were not ordinary. They learned quickly, adapted their strategies, and never gave up, even when outnumbered. Humans had a unique approach to war. They fought like puzzle solvers, striking where the enemy was weakest and retreating before reinforcements could arrive. They avoided unnecessary losses, carefully studying each battle to improve the next. Whereas the Zorkon relied on overwhelming force, humans relied on intelligence, creativity, and unity. One of the first human heroes was Captain Leora Kane, who commanded the ship Defiant. Leora led her crew on daring missions behind enemy lines, disabling Zorkon weapon systems and saving entire human colonies from destruction. Her bravery inspired not only her crew but millions of people across human space. Stories of her courage spread like wildfire, creating legends that would fuel humanity's morale for years. Another important factor was human technology. Scientists had developed energy shields that could withstand direct hits from Zorkon plasma cannons. Advanced navigation systems allowed human ships to travel faster than the enemy anticipated, appearing where they were least expected. Engineers worked day and night, modifying ships mid-battle, creating surprises the Zorkon could not prepare for. Even the civilians contributed. Every planet had volunteers assisting with research, manufacturing, or communications. Families sent messages of support to the crews on the front lines. Humanity's unity was their greatest weapon. Where the Zorkon ruled through fear and domination, humans fought together with hope, trust, and a shared purpose. As the months passed, the humans' reputation grew. The Zorkon were no longer seen as untouchable conquerors. Entire sectors that had once feared the Alpha race began to rise against them. Planets previously under strict Zorkon control quietly rebelled, cutting off supplies, spreading misinformation, and aiding human forces. Karok's anger grew daily. No longer could he dismiss the humans as insignificant. They had turned from prey into a threat. He sent wave after wave of ships to crush them, but each attempt ended in failure. The Zorkon began to whisper among themselves, afraid and unsure. The invincible Alpha race was being challenged, and the challenger was a species they had once called weak. Despite the danger, humans never grew arrogant. They celebrated victories, but they knew the war had just begun. Every new battle was a lesson, every small victory a step toward something greater. Humanity had learned that strength alone was not enough. Courage, intelligence, and determination could overcome even the most powerful enemy. By the end of the year, human forces had achieved something the galaxy had thought impossible. They had made the Zorkon fear them. From tiny colonies to vast starships, Humans were no longer victims. They were warriors, united under a single banner of survival and freedom. In the shadows of space, Karak began to realize a terrifying truth. The humans were not just resisting, they were rising. And if they continued, they could destroy the Alpha Empire itself. The galaxy waited, uncertain of what would come next. Humans had struck first, showing that even the smallest species could stand against the mightiest. The first chapter of humanity's rebellion was complete. But the war for the stars was only beginning. And somewhere in the dark reaches of space, the Zorkon wondered, could the weak really become the strongest? The humans had fought carefully, striking where the Zorkon were weakest and avoiding unnecessary risks. But now it was time for something bigger. Humanity was no longer satisfied with small victories. They were ready to change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Zorkon, furious and humiliated by repeated losses, decided to crush the humans once and for all. Emperor Karak ordered the largest fleet ever assembled to march into human space. Thousands of ships, each bristling with deadly weapons, moved like a storm toward Earth and its colonies. The Alpha race believed victory was certain. The humans would fall beneath their overwhelming force, just as countless civilizations had before. Humans, however, had anticipated this. They had studied the enemy, mapping every route the Zorkon fleet might take. Using hidden bases and advanced tracking systems, human forces set traps throughout the vast stretches of space. When the Alpha fleet arrived, it was not met by a single defending force, but by a series of carefully planned ambushes. The first engagement took place near the asteroid belt of the Zirian system. Human ships, smaller but faster and more agile, darted between massive asteroids. Gravity mines, camouflaged as natural space rocks, detonated at precise moments, splitting the enemy fleet. Zorkon ships, unaccustomed to such tactics, collided and panicked. Humans used the chaos to strike critical targets, disabling weapon systems and crippling key vessels. Captain Leora Kane led the most daring attack. Piloting the ship Defiant, she navigated her fleet through enemy lines, striking at the heart of a Zorkon battle group. Her crew worked in perfect synchronization, using shields and energy pulses to avoid attacks while disabling the enemy from within. When the dust settled, half of the Alpha fleet lay destroyed, their massive ships floating lifelessly in space. This victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The so-called invincible Zorkon were vulnerable, and the humans were proving to be more than a nuisance, they were a threat. Other species, once oppressed and fearful, began openly rebelling. Supply lines were cut, communication networks sabotaged, and spies helped human forces gain critical intelligence. The humans fought differently than any species the Zorkon had ever faced. Instead of charging head-on, they attacked in waves, exploiting the enemy's weaknesses, then retreating before reinforcements could arrive. They adapted quickly, learning from each encounter and improving their strategies. While the Zorkon relied on fear and raw power, humans relied on clever planning, teamwork, and the courage to act when others would hesitate. The turning point came during the Battle of Lorien 5, a vital Zorkon supply hub. Human forces executed a perfect trap, drawing the Alpha fleet into a narrow space corridor surrounded by moons. Gravity mines hidden among the moons created barriers and explosions that scattered the enemy. Human drones disabled shields while fighter squads struck from unexpected directions. Within hours, what had been a mighty fleet was shattered. Thousands of Zorkon soldiers surrendered or fled. Emperor Karak was enraged. He could not understand how such a small, young species could inflict so much damage. They are clever, yes, he admitted, his voice echoing through the halls of his palace. But they are still weak. Strength alone will not save them. I will crush them personally. Yet even as Karak prepared to strike back, his officers began to doubt him. The humans were not just fighting, they were winning. Each victory emboldened them, and their numbers seemed endless. The Alpha's fear grew quietly, like a shadow spreading across the fleet. They had ruled as supreme predators for centuries, but now they realized that being the strongest did not mean being unbeatable. Meanwhile, humans celebrated, but cautiously. Every victory taught them humility and the value of preparation. They knew the war was far from over, yet the tide had changed. No longer were they the hunted, they were the hunters. Human ingenuity, courage, and unity had turned the tables on a race that had once believed itself untouchable. Across the galaxy, whispers of humans' successes spread like wildfire. Stories of Captain Leora Kane and her daring missions became legends. Colonists rebuilt, refugees returned, and oppressed species gained hope. The Alpha Empire, once feared above all, was beginning to fracture under the unexpected power of humanity. By the end of the campaign, humans controlled critical sectors, forcing the Zorkan to retreat. What had begun as a desperate struggle for survival had transformed into a fight for dominance. The humans had shown that strength alone did not make a species supreme. Intelligence, courage, and unity could defeat even the most terrifying enemy. In the dark halls of the Alpha Palace, Karak stared at a galaxy that was slipping from his grasp. The humans had changed everything, and though he still commanded immense power, he knew one undeniable truth. The tide had turned and the Alpha race could no longer assume victory. Humanity had become a force that the galaxy would never ignore. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy watched as the underdog rose. And the Alpha race, feared above all others, realized that their era of unchallenged rule might be ending. The Alpha race had grown desperate. The humans, once weak and insignificant, had become a formidable enemy. Every fleet the Zorkan sent was met with strategy, courage, and precision. Emperor Karak knew that if he did not act decisively, the Alpha Empire could collapse. He gathered his commanders and declared that they would strike at the heart of human space, Earth itself. The goal was simple: destroy the humans' capital and end their rebellion once and for all. Human leaders had anticipated this. They had been preparing for the Alpha strike for months, reinforcing defenses, deploying fleets in strategic positions, and evacuating civilians from vulnerable areas. Humans understood that a direct confrontation would be dangerous, but they also knew the Zorkan would overextend themselves if they attacked Earth. This was their chance to turn the final battle into a trap. The first wave of the Zorkan fleet arrived, dark and immense, stretching across the void of space like a living shadow. Their massive ships opened fire, and explosions erupted in orbit around Earth's colonies. Humanity's defensive fleets engaged immediately, but their goal was not to fight a head-on battle. They drew the Alpha forces into a narrow corridor near the moons of the Terran system, where gravity mines, automated turrets, and hidden ambush points had been carefully prepared. The Zorkan, confident and arrogant, fell into the trap. Massive ships collided with asteroids and mines, creating chaos within their ranks. Human drones disabled weapon systems, while fighter squadrons darted through gaps, striking at critical targets. The Alpha fleet began to crumble. Even the largest cruisers, previously thought unstoppable, were damaged beyond repair. On the ground, humans coordinated planetary defenses. Energy shields protected cities, and rapid response teams countered boarding attempts. Civilians assisted in hospitals, factories, and communication centers, contributing to the war effort in any way they could. Humanity had learned that survival was a collective effort, and every citizen played a role. Captain Leora Kane once again led a decisive strike. Piloting the Defiant, she and her crew infiltrated the Zorkan command ship orbiting Earth. Using precise timing and clever maneuvers, they disabled the ship's shields and targeted its power core. Explosions rocked the vessel, leaving it incapacitated. The loss demoralized the Alpha forces, and Karak's commanders began to doubt their chances of victory. Karak, enraged by these setbacks, personally led his elite warriors in an assault on Earth's orbit. He believed his presence would rally the Alpha troops and crush the humans' resistance. But humans were ready. Coordinating their fleets with remarkable skill, they struck from multiple directions, using long-range cannons and gravitational anomalies to separate Karak's forces. His elite warriors fought valiantly, but they could not withstand the humans' careful planning and teamwork. As the battle raged, the turning point became clear. The humans, though outnumbered, had superior strategy, coordination, and morale. Every Zorkan loss weakened the fleet, while every human victory strengthened their resolve. Aliens across the galaxy watched in awe as a species once dismissed, as weak now, led the charge against the mighty Alpha. Empire, the final confrontation, came when Karak himself was cornered on the surface of Earth's moon base. Surrounded by human forces, the Emperor refused to surrender, roaring that the Alphas would never kneel. But humans had learned to overcome fear with courage and precision. Leora Kane and her strike team disabled his defenses, cutting off escape routes and isolating him from reinforcements. In the end, Karak fell, and with him, the last stronghold of the Alpha race. His death signaled the collapse of the Zorkon resistance. Fleets scattered, planets once under their control declared independence, and the galaxy realized that the humans had defeated the so-called invincible Alpha Empire. When the fighting ended, humans did not celebrate with arrogance. They mourned the losses, rebuilt colonies, and ensured that liberated planets had the freedom to govern themselves. They had proven that strength alone did not make a species supreme. Intelligence, courage, and unity mattered more. The galaxy began to change. Species that had suffered under the Alpha Empire now looked to humanity not as rulers, but as allies and protectors. Humans had destroyed the greatest threat the galaxy had known, but they had done so with honor and wisdom. Humanity stood stronger than ever. The last war had tested them, but it had also proven their potential. They had faced the mightiest enemy, survived impossible odds, and emerged victorious. The legend of humans had begun, and the galaxy would never forget it. The phrase spread quickly among stars and planets. They were considered alpha until humans killed them all. It became a symbol not of destruction, but of hope, a reminder that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the most powerful adversary. And in the quiet of space, as the stars shone on liberated worlds, humanity prepared for a new future, one in which they would protect, explore, and inspire, proving that in a galaxy of predators, humans were truly a force to be reckoned with. The war was over. The Alpha race, once feared across the galaxy, had been defeated. Planets that had trembled under the Zorkon's rule were now free. Humans, though victorious, did not celebrate with arrogance or cruelty. They remembered the lives lost, both human and alien, and honored them with respect and humility. Earth became a center of coordination for the liberated systems. Representatives from dozens of planets came to negotiate alliances, trade agreements, and shared protection. Humans, instead of taking control, offered guidance and support, helping species rebuild without imposing their will. Their actions proved that strength was not meant for oppression, but for protection. Captain Leora Kane, now a hero across multiple star systems, traveled to liberated worlds to assist in rebuilding efforts. She met with local leaders, sharing strategies to protect their populations and improve infrastructure. Her bravery had inspired countless others, and she humbly credited her crew and the unity of all humans for their victories. The humans also established academies to teach other species the lessons learned from the war. Tactics, diplomacy, and cooperation became central subjects. They trained pilots, engineers, and leaders from different civilizations, showing that intelligence, courage, and teamwork could overcome even the strongest enemy. Through these efforts, humanity strengthened bonds with other species and built a galaxy united by respect rather than fear. Across the stars, the phrase "they were considered alpha until humans killed them all" became more than a statement of conquest. It became a symbol of hope and resilience. Young beings from countless worlds repeated it proudly, knowing that even the seemingly weak could rise to greatness. Humanity had rewritten what it meant to be strong. Human colonies flourished, trade routes reopened, and new technologies spread across liberated systems. Humanity shared knowledge freely, helping planets recover faster than anyone expected. Unlike the Zorkon, humans did not exploit others for gain. They empowered them. The galaxy had learned that humans were not conquerors but protectors, a species whose strength was measured not by domination, but by the good they could do for others. Even the survivors of the Zorkon came to understand this. Some sought to hide, fearing reprisal, but many approached humans to negotiate peace. Humans accepted, offering them chances to start anew on distant worlds with strict guidance to prevent any return to tyranny. Karak's empire had fallen, but humanity chose mercy where possible, proving that true strength could be compassionate. In the years that followed, humans became leaders in exploration as well. Starships set out to map uncharted territories, establish colonies, and make contact with civilizations that had remained hidden. Humanity approached these new worlds with curiosity and respect, learning from others while sharing their own knowledge. The galaxy had become vast and interconnected, and humans played a central role in maintaining balance. On Earth, monuments were built to honor those who had fought in the war. The names of fallen soldiers, scientists, engineers, and civilians were inscribed for future generations to remember. Stories of courage, strategy, and sacrifice were taught in schools. The humans had not only won a war, they had created a legacy, a reminder that no challenge was too great for determination and unity. As the sun rose over Earth, reflecting off the gleaming spires of new spaceports, humanity looked to the stars with confidence. They had faced the mightiest predator in the galaxy and prevailed. They had turned fear into hope, weakness into strength, and survival into a promise for a better future. The galaxy had changed forever. Humans were no longer just another species. They were symbols of courage, intelligence, and unity. They had proven that the universe, vast and unpredictable, was not ruled by those with the strongest claws or the sharpest teeth. It was shaped by those with vision, heart, and the will to rise above the impossible. And so a new era began. Planets once oppressed were free. Star systems once fearful were safe. Across countless worlds, beings looked to humans not with dread, but with trust and admiration. The Alpha race had been the rulers of fear, but humanity became the rulers of hope. In every corner of the galaxy, the story spread. They were considered Alpha until humans killed them all. But it was not just about killing or victory. It was about courage, unity, and the unwavering belief that even the smallest and youngest species could change the course of history. Humanity had risen, not as conquerors but as protectors of a galaxy that was finally beginning to understand what true strength meant. And in the silent expanse of space, stars twinkled over worlds that would never again tremble under fear. Humanity had proven it. In a universe of predators, the human spirit was the ultimate force.